Today, December 1st, 2016, and we started our second day in Qatar, going north from an area called Yumail. We're going towards the north tip of Ruwais, and then we're gonna go down south towards Fuwairat or Jabal Fuwairat. I think we will do today about 30 kilometers, and then we have another day before we reach the area of Ras Laffan, and then we have a big crossing around there. So it's the first place we see in the area here that you have long stretches of beaches, nice and clean. You can camp out. It's really beautiful in terms of activity, kayaking, camping, and enjoying the nature.
With a total coastline covering 563 kilometers, Qatar stands geographically in the middle of the Arabian Gulf. And for the K2O team, it represents a milestone crossing, testing their physical stamina during 8 to 10 hours of continuous kayaking. With a coastline that is largely sparse of landmarks, it's imperative that the kayakers manage to find their ground support team before nightfall makes it dangerously difficult. Wael and Fayez are already worried about being in the right place for the kayakers' landfall. Unable to contact them directly, all they can do is scan the horizon and try to make themselves visible, hoping that Mansour and Bashar are in line of sight, which, much to everyone's relief, is the case in this instance. After 10 hours on the open sea, Bashar and Mansour rendezvous with the ground support team, limping ashore, exhausted, hungry, and covered in thick layers of salt and sweat. With an air temperature of 24 degrees and flat water, today was a big push, covering 45 kilometers in relatively ideal conditions. As the camp routine gets set up, a very welcome solar shower helps to remove at least part of the thick coating of sea salt. Over the months ahead, this becomes one of their most persistent personal grievances, since the caustic nature of salt never gets totally washed off and takes its toll on their bodies. With campsite routine setting in already, dinner is prepared for the ground team, whilst Bashar and Mansour maintain their calorie and nutrient-based freeze-dried regime.
شلون أكلك؟ نشوف هنا أطيب أكلتك. أنت شنو حطيت؟ الماش بوتيتو طيبة ها؟ حارة.
After dinner, it's time to pull out the charts and plan tomorrow's route. Having already crossed the most northern point of Qatar, they now start heading south along the eastern coast of the peninsula. The next morning, dense fog signals the start of changing weather.
Good morning. Today is the 3rd of December, and this is your forecast for the day. The temperature is 22.8. I can already see between me and the camera here the fog. It's falling, very fine mist. The humidity is 99.1. It's almost 100% natural when you see particles of mist So when the temperature and the dew point meet, that's when you see this fog. So today it's very high, we don't have any wind. We are hoping for the sun to come up and heat the atmosphere, boil the mist, and then we have a clearer day.
Over breakfast, Bashar explains more about their freeze-dried meals.
One problem we have in kayaking is carrying a lot of food for the whole period. So we have to revert to the freeze-dried food. And of course, the very interesting thing is its expiry date. This one expires 2046, which is 30 years from today. Now, I also had to buy my own freeze-drying machine, and I made my own fool mudammas, or beans. This is typical Arabic breakfast dish. So I made my whole mix, and then all I have to do is just add water and put the olive oil on it. Another thing that Arabs always depended on in their travel through the desert is the dates. So dates along with the milk. You can't carry fresh milk, but I have powder milk. So dates and powder milk are for me an important source of my energy, whether it's during the day or at night or in the morning, anytime. So this is really important, it's proven, and it worked with the Arabs throughout their desert trips.
Having made really good time since the disappointment of Bahrain, they reach close to Ras Laffan oil refinery. Special security restrictions now means the kayakers need to stop and load the vehicles back on the trailer and drive around the restricted area to get back into the water 50 kilometers down the coast. This next leg will carry them through all the way to Qatar's capital, Doha. Upon reaching Doha, they're guided to the Maritime Heritage Village, where they meet with officials from the Ministry of Environment and the Kuwaiti ambassador.
انت بتعرف بالضبط انت وين. طبعا لازم يكون عندك معلم، اذا ما في عندك معلم انت لازم تشوف طريقة ثانية يعني. فتشوف اوكي تقول انا مثلا هني تاخذ خط، تاخذ لك 3 نقاط انت تشوفهم.
After explaining the expedition's goals, the Arab media has finally caught on to this story. Bashar and Mansour are able to expand on their message.
الأضرار اللي حاشتها بالفترة الأخيرة، واليوم احنا وصلنا بكتارة وما قصروا الإخوان رحبوا فينا ومشكورين على محافظتهم على التراث وعلى الرياضات البحرية.
In Doha, the team finally connect with what will become the expedition's main support vessel, at least for part of the way. Ekaterina is a 100-foot Turkish gullet that will shadow the kayakers at sea from Doha to the UAE and all the way towards the east coast border of Oman. Although showing signs of wear and tear, this vessel is a veteran of a number of expeditions and generally used for tourism as a private yacht. Once loaded, the camera crew move in, and now the expedition has 2 support teams, one on land and one at sea. But before leaving Doha, Bashar takes a quick tour of the fish market, a good way to observe the diversity of marine life from these waters.
هذا شرب من وين يصيد هذا؟ هذا مال السعودية ومال السوبر ماركت. Which is the most popular fish here in Qatar?
Despite the pressure on some species, such as hamur, the market seems to be thriving and is always a fascinating insight into just how important the sea is to our daily lives.
A particular size for crab or is it any size? Basically, I'm trying to find out if they have regulations on the crab size. And as you see, these are all the females and these are the males here. But sometimes you find the females with the eggs in them. And this is something important to the conservation of the crabs.
As the kayakers move down towards the Mesaid Sea Line Beach, where they will join the ground crew to camp in preparation to push on into the inland sea, the Ekaterina leaves Doha to take a position further south. Seeing as most of the voyage from now on would be offshore, it clearly makes sense to have maritime support. The whole coast along the way is built up with oil refineries and gas LNG plants. These are restricted areas, and the kayakers have to power on, facing a long day, unable to stop anywhere along the way to rest. Another late-night rendezvous gives the ground support team plenty to worry about. Once again, finding each other is tricky, and made worse by the change in weather. Using their GPS tracker app, they monitor Mansour's location beacon as best they can, hoping that Bashar is also with him. Temperatures have dropped, and it's already cold. By 11 p.m., exhausted and chilled, they eventually find each other.
كان الهواء وايد قوي وحلو بظهرنا وكنا ماشيين بسرعة شنو؟
يعني وصلنا صاروخية يعني مشينا 20 بالسيارة. سرعة السيارة قعدنا نمشي 20.
يمكن بساعة مشينا 18 كيلو.
18 كيلو.
أول ساعة ونص. المهم مستانسين رحنا على مثل عليال اكتشفنا يال هناك فيهم أشجار القرم وفي بحيرة اكتشفنا بحيرة خيال. المهم بعدين طلعنا واخذنا الاتجاه ونقول اوكي نروح كذي وكذي وكذي. قطر كأنها قلعة محمية طبيعية. يعني مئات كيلومترات من الصخور اللي شفتها تطلع 2-3 كيلو من اليال وساحل يعني very shallow. بالضبط. فمعناته كنا حظ. This is the bay of mangroves here, the bay of Dakhira. It is one of the first areas where I feel nature is left alone, it's protected, and it's really nice. You can see a cycle of life happening from the marine side, from the coastal side, even up to the desert side here. We also see impact of human. These behaviors are what destroys nature slowly. If people continue to do that, and if there is more people doing this, then this area will start slowly being destroyed. So these are the things that we can show people.
Determined to live out a lifelong goal, Bashar decided to visit Qatar's infamous inland sea, known as Khor Al-Udeid. With guidance from the Qatar Environment Authorities, they also discussed the pending departure from Qatar to the UAE in 2 days' time, where they will be reaching the rendezvous point with a support vessel.
We went to Khor Al-Udeid from where we are today, which is Sea Line Beach, south of Qatar. We have taken our kayaks on top of the car through the desert and the dunes and reached there about 45 minutes drive through the dunes. Very, very interesting drive and very beautiful scenery.
Khor Al-Udeid is a large inland sea in southeastern Qatar, on the border with Saudi Arabia, and in the middle of Qatar's high dune desert, made famous as it once served as a refuge for pirates during the 19th century.
We reached the center of the environmental, the Ministry of Environment and the municipality, and they took us around there.
Recently, Qatar's Environment Authority has declared this a marine protected area. Impressive sand dunes gravitate down, reaching the water's edge, and the shallow water is home to rays and other benthic intertidal marine life.
We took our kayaks and visited two rocky islands. It was very interesting to see that each island had a huge nest of an osprey, the sea eagle. And they both had eggs in them. One had 3 eggs, the other one had 2 eggs. And they are very protective, of course, of their eggs. We took quick pictures there and left them. And we continued kayaking through the area, which was really a beautiful area.
With only a couple of days left in Qatar before leaving for the UAE, the following morning starts a big day. Bashar and Mansour are finally joined by their 3rd permanent kayak teammate.
My name is Colin Wong. I've come from Ireland to join the Kayak for Kuwait expedition. I'm going to be joining from Doha to Oman, and I'm very excited.
From here on, Colin will be with them all the way to the end. This professional kayaker brings an experience aimed to enhance the levels of safety of the kayakers during the more testing legs of the expedition. After kitting him out with his own kayak and equipment, Colin packs his food supplies, breaking meals down into daily rations.
To make sure that you have tasty food when you're on these trips. And that's why I bring cola bottles and beef jerky.
With only 2 days left before leaving for the UAE, Colin has little time to get used to the equipment in the water. These state-of-the-art kayaks from Piranha, UK, configured to Bashar's specifications, are designed for expeditions. Reinforced hulls and extra storage means they're more than able to withstand the conditions faced by the K2O team.
This is the point that is most critical, I think, to our trip. The forecast is expecting 24 knot winds from the northeast. The sea will be rough, so once we start, we have a serious commitment. We're going to cross lots of mileage. There is no coast to revert back to.
Leaving Qatar for the UAE marks an historic moment. This is the first time the Immigration Department of Qatar has ever issued an exit stamp by sea with a kayak. Following careful instructions from the EPA and the Coast Guard, this leg involves paddling out to sea away from land in order to reach 2 tiny islands. This little outpost is the last Qatari landfall on the maritime border with the UAE, and the team's campsite for the night.
I like to reflect on Qatar, not just on an environmental aspect or angle, also on a social angle. The generosity of the Qatari people was so incredible. We felt like we were travelers from maybe the old days, 2, 3, 4 or 1,000 years ago. When people travel from place to place, they come to another place and they're welcomed in a special way. And this particular feeling is what we're trying to say, that our sea and our destiny is one. And we feel it through the social behavior, but now the sea is putting us together and we have to take care of the sea again. Yesterday we had an interview with one of the fishermen, very old fishermen here, who've been fishing since they were 12 years old. And they said they counted maybe at least 4 or 5 different kinds of fish that they don't see anymore, or very, very, very rarely. Yeah, we found all the wood we could find. So this little fish that Mansour caught today, after he caught it, his kayak turned and it was pulling him back. Imagine, such a small thing, it has so much power.
بشار
نعم.
تعال كذا بشار.
ها.
It doesn't actually look that bad, to be very honest with you. Fish time. Premium tuna.
That's real fish.
By early morning, the Ekaterina joins them as they plan to make the big push into UA waters. But again, changing weather threatened to delay them on the islands.
Are you hearing me, or you are not getting the reception?
No, we're hearing you loud and clear. Colin, come in.
Can you also ring Dr. Abraham for Bashar and fill him in on the message?
Jonathan got in touch with Dr. Ibrahim, and Dr. Ibrahim is checking the situation of the Coast Guard.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, we just got a reply from Dr. Ibrahim. He says the UAE Coast Guard are saying it's too rough with big waves for them, and the approach to Heimat is not good. He's waiting to know what Bashar plans to do next, so he can inform the Coast Guard.
After discussing it between themselves, Bashar has decided to press on, even if conditions were far from ideal. From here on, a Qatari Coast Guard launch would accompany the team until handed over to the UAE Coast Guard officials at Mohammed Island in the western region. Despite the threat of worsening conditions, the team is keen to make up for lost time, pushing themselves hard. Whilst the kayakers struggled against the choppy sea, the Ekaterina moved ahead to make its way to reach western Abu Dhabi waters before nightfall, and in order to go through immigration. But by late afternoon, things suddenly went wrong. Disastrously, the Ekaterina had run aground on a reef. Within moments, it was clear the boat was in trouble, twisting horribly on her side and taking water in from open windows and a hole in the hull. Given the close support of the UAE Coast Guard, help was on the scene in less than an hour. After appraising the situation, everyone was taken off the boat and transferred to the nearest Coast Guard base. The following morning, joined by the kayakers who had caught up overnight, the team go back with the Coast Guard to see if anything can be done to save the ship.
I think the ship is up. I think the mast is broken. The mast, it looks like it's from here.
But all the team could do is remove all equipment and personal effects. And despite later attempts to salvage the vessel, she was eventually abandoned and has since become a part of the reef. A major financial and logistics setback for the expedition, it was now imperative to find a replacement vessel as quickly as possible and to get it down to Abu Dhabi, where it would eventually meet up with the team in the next few days. In the meantime, the three kayakers decided to press on without support. But moving without support makes a major difference to their routine, revealing just how exposed the kayakers are against unpredictable conditions. In light of losing the support ship, Bashar decided it was best to move directly to Abu Dhabi, ignoring the previous route, whilst the ground support team tried to find another support vessel, moving fast and making steady headway. The first main waypoint reached was actually the western region's halfway mark at Sirbanias Island, home to one of Abu Dhabi's main wildlife protected reserves and an ecotourism safari resort.
We're here and we're trying to make it the whole way
across to here. The plan is to aim 88 degrees to this island, work our way across to this island, and then make our way across here. We travel at around 3 to 4 nautical miles an hour, so 15 kilometers. You're talking 5 to 6 hours of kayaking with north wind pushing us, I suppose, to land, but pushing us away from the direction where we need to go.
With timing against them, they have no time to sightsee or do any diving as originally planned. Amusingly, whilst moving away from the island, they find themselves amongst a frenzy of panicked needlefish trying to escape predators below them.
So here we are on one of these channels going from Banias Island, and we have a mini LNG ship. Careful, these are not a joke. Stay away from the white. So here we approach Al-Turkum Island. The speed is not that good. We will reach at 4 according to this. So we go to the long one. Now you can see the length of it. So that one is first anyway. And it's in front of the second one. This clear, untouched sand. Wow, that is heavenly. We're gonna go good, I think.
Colin and Mansour land and approach people on the island to ask for permission to camp here for the night.